Hi everybody, I'm Karen Gibbs, Creative Director of Batiks by Northcott, and you are in the group Karen Gibbs for the Love of Batiks. And what does watercolor have to do with batiks, right? Don't I always talk about watercolor paintings and I say, oh, when you do a watercolor painting, the color that you apply in batiks kind of acts like a watercolor painting, the way the colors interact. And so today I thought maybe I'd play a little with some watercolors and make a mess. Arts and Crafts Day today, right? And just kind of talk about how color is applied in something, that you can do at home if you'd like, or, to play with. So you get the idea of how to mix color, okay? Or what I'm talking about when mixing color. Because batiks are all about color, aren't they? They're just stunning. So let's look at what I have on the table here. First of all, gotta label your cup. I used to do watercolors, believe it or not, in a car, driving. I know that sounds ridiculous, but at a stoplight or something like that, I just, do a little bit of a sketch, and I always had my cup labeled not coffee, because you don't want to drink that, obviously. Anyway, when I'm choosing colors, I do something a little bit different. I like to have yarn swatches. I go and I choose some yarn swatches that maybe depict or work with a specific collection. And I've talked about that, how I go about, forecasting what colors are coming or what you're going to be in the mood to buy. Maybe we do go back to our traditional colors, but they are changing. They change a little bit. Maybe in one year they have more of grayed off tones to them, or maybe they're more vibrant and just saturated. So there's lots of changes that happen in the market, and there's lots of things that change or that cause the changes in color. And one thing we've talked about and we're noticing is in interior design, interior decor. We were very fascinated with the whites in the kitchen. Think white, right? And then we'd put gray on it. Very clean looks. And now we're noticing that a lot of the warmer tones are kind of seeping in. So we're taking those cool colors or the cool clean, and then we're seeping in some warmer tones and warming that up. So you've got your contrast of your high stark contrast with the warmer tones. All right. So I pulled some colors here, and these, like I said, are yarn swatches, and you can look and look at different color palettes or something like that, rearrange the yarn swatches. But when you pick a color palette and you say, I love that, okay? Or maybe I've got too much of this color in there, or maybe I don't want that, maybe I want white with it, or is this too bright, right? And maybe I want a different blue, more like this, something like that, okay? So you pick your yarn swatches, your colors, and I send them to Indonesia to have the color master at the factory match the yarn swatches or the yarn colors, all right? So once they've matched them and colored them onto the batik or the base fabric, then we go from there. And it's a matter of, it's not just one color, right? Look at all the batiks behind me. They're all different colors. So how do you marry the colors together? You choose a few colors for the motif, right? 3 or 4 for the motif, maybe 3 or 4 for the background, but it's all in the process of how you layer that color. Do you put this green color down first? Do you put this one down first? And you kind of need to experiment sometimes. Sometimes you think, oh, I shouldn't put this darker blue down first because it will obliterate all of the other ones. But it depends on technique as well. How you scrunch the fabric, if you lay it flat, if you're using a lot of soda, all of that kind of stuff, if you're processing. So I thought maybe I'd take one element of that and just play a little bit here. I've got a sketch, and this is supposed to depict the motif, all right? You guys know that the motif is wax. Remember, here's a wax on white. So your wax would be applied to hold the color. In this particular situation, the wax is applied to hold the white, right? All right, so where the wax is going to hold that white color. And then we would go and we'd scrunch it up, maybe, or we'd lay it flat, depending on our color application, and then we'd apply color. So I did not apply the wax on this. I just used a Sharpie, all right, because I felt you could do it actually. You could do it at home if you wanted to put white crayon down, and then you get the idea of what would happen, how it resists the watercolor. Okay, but anyway, I put the Sharpie down, and this is just a watercolor paper. All right, from the art supply store. Okay, so I'm using watercolor paper. I didn't use one. I used one more with that's a smoother texture. It doesn't have a lot of bumps in it. Okay, so the water is going to skim on the top a little bit more than the ones with more bumps in it that absorb more. All right, because I'm trying to depict a little bit of it, kind of like fabric, right? Another thing is I'm not scrunching the paper up the way we would with the fabric. All right, so the water or the color is going to run a little bit differently too. All right. Now you can try this. I have these, you see these everywhere, right? These cute little watercolor palettes. I use these all the time, okay? I use these because, you know what, you can just play with it, and it allows you to play with color. It allows you just to be free and try things, okay, without investing a ton in watercolors or in painting. But it allows you to play. All right, and I usually mix the colors. I'll mix it in the palette here on the top. Now this is just a watercolor pigment, all right? And so it's not going to be a saturated color as maybe the gouache. Gouache is an opaque watercolor, all right? So it's got more saturated, or the color is stronger, all right? So that's, I'm using some of the gouache, and I've got it right here, all right? So generally, when the color's applied, the background fabric is wet. So we're gonna simulate that here by wetting the fabric just with water, okay? I did not put coffee in there, it's just water. It's nothing else, no other artificial substances, okay? And we're just gonna paint onto the background here. Okay, and now you can use, generally they'll use like a sponge kind of thing, and I'll wet the sponge, and maybe, let's use this color right here, okay, and we'll blotch it, right, and we'll blotch it on there, okay, in big balls of color or something like that, right, all right, maybe I need more pigment and to be able to do that, and I'm going to use a different part of the sponge and add maybe some blue on there, okay, and put it in different locations. Obviously, when they do it, you see how even they apply the color, right? What if I wanted to add, let's add some green on there, okay? Because I'm creating a multi, right? Let's add the green on there, okay? And you can see it's kind of got, you know, it goes to white in certain areas, right? Okay, what if I also decided to add and paint on with it, maybe a different tool or a different technique, right? So you've got kind of a different technique of adding the color is going to make it look different. And you guys remember when I talk about the quartering technique or the squirt bottle, right? It's adding pigment in a different way, okay? And that's what we try and do. Not brushes, we're using sponges, or we're squirting the color on there. With the squirt bottle, but it allows the color to blend a little bit better, okay, and in different amounts, all right? So if I do this, and now I'm removing the color a little bit, because it is a watercolor kind of thing, right? I don't think I have enough orange on there. I want a little bit more of orange, and you can see I went crazy with the blue, right? And now I've got blue on my brush, so it's going to add a little bit of the blue more in a darker shade of the gray, because I combine the orange and the gray, or orange and the blue. Now the other element that we keep talking about is soda ash, okay? I'm using salt, okay? And soda on the Batik acts the same as a salt would, okay? And it's kind of sprinkling it on there. And if you could pull in really tight and look at this, you can see what happens. See the bursts of color there, okay? And you'll look at your Batiks closely and you'll see that, okay? And that happened on a watercolor painting from adding the salt, whereas in Batiks we're just adding the soda ash, okay? But I applied the orange first, right? And then when I went to apply another orange later, it had mixed with the blue and it came out a kind of warm gray, didn't it? Okay, so it's a matter of how you're mixing your color. Do you achieve your palette that you've selected at the beginning of the process? So, and this is just a background of one, okay? We do a background and we do motif as well, all right? So there's a lot of color mixing going on, and choosing the right order of things is really important. Behind me today, and you can see this quilt too, that's a Madison Star quilt, but behind me is a collection called Borders, okay, quilt inspired because it's blocks, right? And they're all different color combinations that we like to use in borders. We make the center of the quilt, lots of colors, and then these are just wonderful combinations that bring it all together. All right, and this is a collection that's being shown to stores right now, and if you like it, you got to make sure you ask your local quilt shop to bring it in. They're seeing their Banyan Batiks sales reps right now. But I hope you enjoyed that. It's just a little bit of a watercolor and how it translates into making batiks or coloring batiks. I'm Karen Gibbs, and you are in Karen Gibbs for the Love of Batiks.